So you want to go race your motorcycle, huh? You've had enough of track days and poodling around on motocross tracks and off-road, and you've decided to put your mettle to the test and line up and see if you are better than everyone else. Well, that's really cool. I actually decided to do that myself back in 2020, and racing motorcycles is a ton of fun. However, I have a lot to say about it and things you may not have thought about when it comes to racing your motorcycle. What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Yammy Noob. It's Weekends with Yam. We're back at it once again, and this week we are talking about what it takes to race your motorcycle and some things you may not have thought about and why you may not want to do it after watching this video. Stick around, it's going to be a good one. All right, so when it comes to racing motorcycles, I've got here my KTM 250 SX, my motocross bike that is actually up for sale. And I've got over here my beloved Triumph Daytona 675R in previous race trim, now living more as a track day bike. And I actually did race this motorcycle. I've never raced this bike over here. And we're gonna be talking about primarily road racing today. I did want to include my KTM because I know a lot of you out there may be watching this and have competed in off-road racing. You've got enduro racing events and motocross events, and those are pretty different from road racing, tend to be a lot cheaper, a lot easier to get into, and a lot more low stakes. We're gonna be talking today about racing motorcycles from a road racing perspective. Now, what does it take to actually take your motorcycle and go race? Well, you have to get started with an organizing body. So here in Texas, the CMRA, the Central Motorcycling Racing Association, I believe that's the acronym's meaning. They actually sanction through the AMA all of the races that happen during the season. There's usually about 9 to 10 rounds in a year, maybe 11, I can't remember exactly. And there's many different kinds of racing that you can do. One of the most popular kinds of racing in those types of events are sprint races. That's what I used to do with my Daytona. And you also have endurance events, which are much longer and typically only happen once in a weekend. So a sprint race is usually a race consisting of 7 to 8 laps. You line up with your motorcycle, you grid up after practicing and stuff, you get your qualifying positions, just like a real race in MotoGP that you've seen. There's no like Q1, Q2, it's a lot more low stakes than that. They just use a transponder and grab your average lap times and place you on the grid somewhere so you can go out and have some fun. But those races are typically 7 to 8 laps, furious, fast-paced. You want to get out there, get the whole shot, try to lead the race as quickly as possible because you're not going to have much time to strategize and plan in 7 to 8 laps. You just want to get ahead of everybody and get out and win as quickly as possible. Endurance events are really different. I actually did endurance events on a prepped Ninja 400 as a part of a team that I was on. It was a ton of fun. It was probably the most fun I've had racing motorcycles. And those races, at least here in the CMRA, you do for 6 hours with a team of 3 or 4 guys. Some guys do it in teams of 2, which is pretty nuts because it's pretty intense and pretty difficult to ride a motorcycle for 6 hours or even 3 hours at a time. So you'll go out there, be on the track for 40 to 50 minutes, an hour and a half, whatever your split may be. You come back in, people are refueling the tank, you get off, your legs feel like jelly, you end up sitting on a little chair somewhere and you know, eat a sandwich, try to recuperate, get some fluids back in you, get back on the bike and get back out there. Endurance racing is one of the best ways to build up your skill set as a rider. And that's something I want to mention to you guys. If you're interested in racing motorcycles and you're a track day rider right now, racing motorcycles will dramatically increase your skill set. Because track day riding is one thing, the skill sets there are really varied and it's super controlled. In racing, you are gonna develop your skill sets way, way faster. And that happened with me once I started racing in 2020. But there's a totally different side to racing that I don't think a lot of people talk about, and I think we do need to talk about that will actually deter some people from going. Number one, it's a really big commitment. First of all, your motorcycle needs to be race prepped. The easiest and best way to do this is to buy a motorcycle that is already race prepped from some somewhat reputable club racer or something like that. Whatever you do, unless you are prepping for a Moto America race at a professional or near professional level, there is no reason you should buy a new-ish bike or a new bike and then prep it yourself and do all that stuff yourself. Ask me how I know, because I literally took this Daytona that was basically bone stock that I bought back in 2019, and I went through the process of completely track and race prepping it. It was It was a lot. It was a lot of work to safety wire everything, put the track fairings on, completely prep this motorcycle, and it was worth it because it's now lightweight and really good and amazing on track, but it's a big endeavor. So if you're gonna go racing, buy a prepped bike. The other thing about commitments is that, you know, typically on a race weekend, for road racing anyways, you're talking 3 or 4 days you have to be at the track. Normally the events I would go to, it was Friday was free practice, so you'd usually show up Thursday evening with your bike in your truck or a trailer with all your stuff, you know, your supplies, everything else, a canopy, generator, all your normal track day stuff. You're gonna be spending a ton of money on tires. You have qualifying tires, you have race tires, you have the tires you're gonna bring. There's a lot to do with tires when it comes to racing as well. And that can be an expense that you may not understand right now, but it is very expensive to buy tires and to use tires for a race event. So you have accommodations, tires, you have fluids, you have food, all kinds of stuff. It was very easy for me on a race weekend to drop $1,500. Just easily spend $1,500 on a road racing weekend, getting out there doing at least 2 or 3 different sprint races, splitting costs for our endurance bike as well. So it's a very, very expensive endeavor. The other part about racing that a lot of people don't like talking about, and it's the risk. You know, whether you want to admit it or not, a track day is way lower risk than a racing environment. I mean, I was at maybe 4 or 5 rounds in 2020 for CMRA, competed in several rounds. Some of those I showed up and basically just did the endurance class. Some of them I also sprint raced my Daytona. I can't remember exactly all the ones I went to, but you know, I saw a lot of guys getting seriously hurt out there, more than my track days. I think at a track day, maybe 1 in every 15 track days that I've been to, I've seen someone crash and get seriously injured. But for whatever reason, at CMRA events and in racing, it was really, really, really common to see people getting pretty mangled up. I don't know if it's just the adrenaline, the testosterone, the pace, the willingness to win and all this stuff, but I saw a lot of guys get pretty wiped out while racing. In fact, when I in one of my sprint races that actually I think I got 3rd or 4th place in, the only reason I got 3rd or 4th place was because a dude on a ZX-10 in front of me literally high-sided himself to the moon and completely ate crap right in front of me. And then I just had to kind of keep going through my corners, keep doing my lines. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I saw people just wipe out in front of me and I have to keep going. And for some folks, that doesn't really faze them. But for me, I was like, what am I really out here to prove exactly? You know, like I'm having fun, kind of. I'm also here for like 3 or 4 days doing this. It's a very big commitment. I just got to the point where for me personally, when it came to racing, I just didn't really see the benefit, and the cost seemed extremely high, both from a financial perspective and the opportunity cost of, you know, going to these races, and the fact that there was the potential risk of being at this race and getting seriously injured and then not being able to make videos and not being able to ride and do all this stuff. So that's something you have to contend with when you decide to go toe-to-toe and really race a motorcycle. And it's why I tell a lot of guys when they're at track days that a track day is not racing. The worst thing you can do at a track day is start seeing red and start trying to chase your buddy around and try to pass him and stuff him on the inside, because that's when bad things happen. You should only be doing that if you're in a race condition and trying to be in first place. Racing is, like I said, a great thing to do if you want to improve your skill set. I think it's a great thing to do to get into endurance racing, smaller bikes, because you build up a bunch of lap times and endurance and physical ability, and you just get to lay down so many laps. It's a great thing to do, but you guys gotta be aware of the costs when it comes to racing. You gotta be aware of the risks, and you gotta be aware that it's something that you're gonna have to make a pretty big commitment to in case you wanna do it. As I said, in 2021, I didn't do any racing, mostly because my interest in motorcycling got a little bit more broad. I started getting more into motocross. I started getting more into the kind of leisurely, playful aspects of motorcycling, riding off-road, single track, those sorts of things. And although I still love taking my race bike out on track and ripping some really fast laps, my commitment to it personally has gone down a lot over the years. So that's kind of some of my thoughts on racing motorcycles. If you guys have experienced racing bikes, if you guys have hung out with me before in CMRA events, I know some of you still chime in on the comments every once in a while. Hit them up down below in the comment section below. I'd love to read your feedback. But yeah, that's gonna sum up my thoughts on racing motorcycles. So we'll catch you in the next one. See you later. All right, look, you don't have to lie to me. If you had time for one Yamanu video all the way to the end, you probably have time for another one. You should probably just click this link and watch the video right over here. I promise it's gonna be good. You won't regret it. Seriously, you should just click it. I'm sure it's good. We only make good stuff around here. You should just watch it. Why are you still here?